I don't suppose we can suddenly open people's eyes, but doesn't it mean that it's all the more important for those of us who do get it to do whatever we can?
I grew up in Toronto. And it took me a long time to get it. But once I got it, I just loved the Peril. I would not live anywhere else given any choice. What I don't get is that we can, I presume everybody here believes in it. Why do we have to say we can't stop the oil and gas? Why can't we? This is the Representative Areas Network, which is supposed to represent what we had. And talk to my daughter Laura over there. She's worked in Lomond, she's worked in Tecumseh, the pastures in the southeast. They are being destroyed by oil and gas, but they will be destroyed even more if we let them be privatized. What is wrong with us that we cannot say, this cannot happen? People chain themselves, old women like me, chain themselves to big trees and said, you cannot cut this. They stood in front of the logging trucks and said, you cannot come here. I am willing to chain myself to a pump jack or to a cattle guard. Whatever it takes to say, this is wrong, do not do it.
Why can't we say enough is enough here?
Why are we still letting people plow ancient prairie? I don't get it either. All because it's private land, but you know, we can have public law that determines what people may do on private land.
Hi, thank you very much for your lecture. I just took a personal trip down to Grasslands Park for the first time, and it was just amazing to be able to walk out for days. I encourage everyone to do it while it's still there. Just a bit of a kind of an update / question. I've been to some government consultations in the past, and it seems like they're going to start in the southeast and actually strip mine across. Now, if you look at it, this is available online. The Crown and Investment Corporation branch has kind of pre-approved this, and there's actually a company called New Coal that has over $2.5 million of acres of mineral rights, and it goes pretty much from the southeast corner of the province straight to the edge of Grasslands National Park. You can actually see it through the corridor sections. So I would just say anyone who has a connection to that edge of the land to watch out. And it's kind of ironic, my family land's down in the Big Beaver, where my grandmother grew up homesteading, and it's right in the middle of that map too. And I know, I think, did they speak out? Diana and Joseph have been aware of this and fighting for it. But if anybody else would like to get more into the policy side of this, find me after. And if you guys have any comments on that, because my fear is the mineral rights aspect. And even if we do have the rancher stewardship buy all this, if the government gives away the mineral rights, they can still do a lot of damage.
And it's not just coal either. There's gravel is getting more and more important, and there are, like even at the Wolverine pasture right now, it's one of the 10 that's up for sale. I'm hearing that they're thinking about, you know, the RM locally is interested in mine because of the gravel rates. Gravel's not as bad as this. This strip mining nightmare of new coals is incredible. I've known about it for a couple of years. I don't think there's been, unless you can correct me, I don't think there's been any advancement on the process recently. There's still, it's sort of there, looming like a future possibility someday. We just have to hope that they would never go there. It's horrendous what they're proposing.
I would say there's a policy stretch to allow it to happen very quickly.
Pardon me?
Eroding the policies now. Like part of it, just getting rid of environmental legislation and bringing it into the code, which is a kind of trust industry and find what they break it, rather than having to prove you're not going to destroy it before you go.
Yeah, just more or less massaging the policy long enough and hard enough until it's ready.
And almost page for page what Alberta did 10 or 20 years ago.
Okay. Yes.
Hi. Thank you very much for the talk. I'm one of those folks from Vancouver. I'm here working for a couple of days. Don't count us out. The reason I say that is that folks in my province today are standing in front of coal trains. Today they're locking themselves to things to stop the Enbridge Northern Pipeline. There's lots of people in BC from all walks of life and all ages who are being trained in nonviolent civil disobedience, people who've never taken an activist action in their life, many of whom are federal Conservative Party supporters, or have been, who have taken a personal affront to what they see happening in our province, and are now willing, for the first time in their lives, to step forward in a way that they had never ever dreamed in their wildest dreams that they might be the person to take that kind of crazy radical action. Because I'm meeting them at home. And there's probably a lot of folks, right, I know I'm one of them, who don't really know the nuance of this. If we are to offer any kind of support, the leadership in terms of what the message is and where the support needs to go has to come from this community. But I know that people would respond to a call out because we get very much the danger to our province at this moment. So it's an offer for a channel, perhaps, a conduit, into a form of solidarity and connection and communication around issues that do have something in common. A federal Conservative cabinet minister recently said there's two kinds of people in the country. Those that can hurt me in my riding and everybody else. And I say that, and that within that, for me, as someone who does activism, there's an element of hope, which is that what is it that people in the ridings of those that represent these areas, what are the messages and the frames that they respond to? It may not be someone like me showing up, but it may well be folks like people in this audience who understand the language and the concerns of people in those communities and making those kinds of connections. These are the kinds of conversations we're having in BC and the kinds of actions that we are taking, and they are bearing fruit. Untraditional allies are coming together. So if that kind of strategizing isn't taking place, do you have the space for it?
Thank you. Thank you very well. That's certainly part of what we're hoping to begin tomorrow. Tomorrow's gathering at the Orr Center, we're calling it a public forum, is an opportunity for people to simply speak, but it's also, especially after lunch, we're hoping to start to move toward that kind of common interest and discussion so that we can get that process going here in Saskatchewan. And, I hope some of you will be able to come and join us.
And follow up on that, if you're not able to come, but are interested in being kept in the loop on what comes out of it, we are taping it tomorrow, and it will be available online, but I'm going to sit at that table outside, and if you want to leave an email address, then we can get information out to you as stuff happens, for sure, and I'll share knowledge together.
All right, thanks. Anyone else? Or should we let Candace go up and sign over the books? And I forgot. We're going to pass a plastic tub, not half, around. Just if you have some spare change, you can throw it to help create the costs. There's an name and more than that. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks for coming. And do continue to keep your eye on this issue. This is